The book of Isaiah, chapter 9, verse 3. Thou hast multiplied the nation and not increased the joy. They joy before thee according to the joy in harvest, and as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. Before I get on, I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Shalom to you, hopefully elect. I'm your brother Yahweh Call, your fellow doomsday servant from the GMS Orlando camp. And this is I'll say, new phase concerning World War III as we're getting closer and closer. Like the scriptures say, one woe cometh, or one woe is already passed. All right, and the second woe cometh. All right, and the second woe being passed already, the third woe cometh quickly. Roughly paraphrasing Revelation 9 and 11, or roughly paraphrasing Revelation 9 and Revelation 11. All right. Lord willing, Trump is the last Trump. Lord willing, Trump is the guy to do it, man. There's a lot of things going on, to the point I can't even get sleep. My spirit has been on fire. All right. And I know it's the spirit because being that I work overnights, typically, you get off work, you're tired, you want to go home, you want to go to sleep, but I pretty much have to force myself to go to sleep when I get home in the morning because my spirit is excited, overly excited, just with everything that's going on, the expectation that we have in Yahweh Shem Shai, something that I meditate on every single day. The fact that Yahweh Shem Shai has given me the spirit to deal with the lowly, the chastenings. In the name, spirit, and power of Yahweh Shem Shai, I proclaim victory. All right. I'm expecting the goodly things of Yahweh Shem Shai. Any day now, expecting to receive, which we already are, but it's really going to show forth. It's really going to manifest even more, in the days to come, the goodly things of Yahweh Shem Shai. So just a combination of things. Like I said, I'm just overly excited. My spirit is on fire. And that's why I started off with this here in Isaiah 9 and 3 again. Thou hast multiplied the nation and not increased the joy. Because the tables are about to turn in our favor. You got to believe that. You got to know it for yourself. All right. Because as we sorrow and the world is rejoicing, they're in a spirit of mirth. Well, the world is about to be in sorrow, and our sorrow is about to be turned to joy. So, like I just said, thou hast multiplied the nation and not increased the joy. They joy, talking about the hopeful elect, before thee according to the joy in harvest. Because you see, we're at the end. All right, these prophecies are coming to pass. Like I said, a lot of things are going on. All right. And, I'm overly excited in the spirit. All right. So before I go on rambling, I'm going to just go ahead and play this video. And I'm going to be doing a lot of interjecting, pausing, making a couple of points, bringing scriptures out through the spirit. So without further ado, I'll play this video.
What took decades to build and is the envy of the world, a network of alliances that has kept the United States safe after World War II, is today, right now, shakier than at any other point, all because of the Trump administration. News breaking today of extraordinary discussions that weeks or months ago would have been unthinkable. NBC News has exclusive reporting that some of the United States' closest allies are talking about scaling back their intelligence sharing relationship with the United States. That includes the UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand. It's also known as the Five Eyes Alliance, but it also includes Israel and Saudi Arabia, who are having these conversations. And it's because, quote, concerns about safeguarding foreign assets whose identities could inadvertently be revealed. One Western government official tells NBC News this, quote, there are serious discussions going on about what information can be shared with the U.S. The Five Eyes have always worked on the premise that we don't spy on each other. I don't think that's reliable anymore. Tulsi Gabbard and these other characters, I don't think we can have any degree of normalcy in the relationship. That's right now where we are, and I don't see any way that changes.
So just real quick, dealing with this Five Eyes alliance is basically just an intelligence alliance. You know, these certain nations, they share certain intelligence with one another. But again, things are rocky. Relationships, the trust is rocky. All right. And these nations within this alliance, they don't really trust America, since under Trump's administration, is basically siding with Putin. All right. And not only that, Trump is trying to talk about, actually, if I'm not mistaken, he was talking about kicking Canada, which is a part of this intelligence alliance. Trump was talking about kicking Canada out of this, Five Eyes group. So shit is rocky. All right. The trust is rocky. Relationships are rocky.
That's what's happening behind the scenes. Out in the open today, our European allies held another emergency meeting to try to figure out how to prepare for a future without the United States as a reliable ally. NBC News confirmed earlier reporting that there are ongoing talks happening between around 20 countries, mostly European countries, interested in contributing to what they call a coalition of the willing to support Ukraine. It is, of course, a response and a reaction to the events over the last week, the halting of arms shipments to Ukraine, the pause in intelligence sharing with our ally Ukraine, and the ambush of our ally, whose war against Vladimir Putin had once united the West. And in the days after that meeting, the attacks on Zelensky himself. Now, Politico is reporting this, quote, 4 senior members of Donald Trump's entourage have held secret discussions with some of Kyiv's top political opponents to Volodymyr Zelensky, just as Washington aligns with Moscow in seeking to lever the Ukrainian president out of his job. Those discussions center on whether Ukraine could hold quick presidential elections. These are being delayed in line with the country's constitution because Ukraine remains under martial law. Critics of holding elections say they could be chaotic and play into Russia's hands, with so many potential voters serving on the front lines or living abroad as refugees. And news breaking just a few minutes ago, President Zelensky posted on X that Ukrainian officials will meet with his American partners during a scheduled meeting in Saudi Arabia on Monday. President Zelensky says this, quote, Ukraine is most interested in peace. America's allies realigning for a world without American leadership as the Trump administration takes actions favorable to Russia. This is where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends.
So, again, before I go on, when after this whole fiasco with Trump and Zelensky, Trump paused aid, all right, to Ukraine. And mind you, always keep in mind, the nations are watching this. All right, they're seeing this. So not only did Trump pause the aid to Ukraine, but again, he's basically siding more with Russia, doing deals with Russia. All right, they're getting close with Russia, and again, America's allies, they're seeing this, and obviously that wouldn't be for their best of interests. So going back to what the point that was being made in the beginning, with the trust is shaky. All right, they want to withhold certain intelligence information to Babylon. All right, and not only that, certain European nations are basically siding with Ukraine. All right. Because again, like I said, and we've seen this back in 2020, I think it was, or 2020, 21 or 22 rather, when Biden, under Biden's administration, he pulled out of Afghanistan. All right. Like I said, always keep in mind the nations are seeing this, and to the other nations, they look at that and you would think, well, hey, if he does that to one of his own allies, well, hey, maybe we need to reconsider being allies of Babylon. All right. Because again, this whole thing with Trump stopping aid. All right. These European allies, they're seeing that, or excuse me, Babylonian allies, they're seeing this, and well, hey, if he's going to do it to them, do it to Ukraine, well, hey, we need to be prepared because, what's to say? Because the aggression with Russia is not going to stop. All right. And that's the fear right now, because not only that, I don't know if they mention it in this video. I think they do. But with the whole thing with NATO, now what's going on with NATO? It just came out about, again, going back to Trump, basically telling NATO that they need to give more. I think with the whole defense spending threshold, they have to give a certain percentage of their GDP, basically to Babylon. They got to pay more. They're already paying a certain percentage, but Trump is saying you got to pay more. And if you don't, well, when enemy nations strike you, then we're not going to defend you. So that's another, that's another backstab, you could say. All right. So NATO, the relationship with NATO is shaky. The relationship with the EU is shaky. All right. France is another one. Well, let me not jump the gun, because I do believe they mentioned that in this video. Let me just play some more.
NBC News national security correspondent Courtney Kuby, who's bylined on that reporting we read from. Also joining us, former CIA director, now senior national security analyst John Brennan's here. Courtney, take me through what you're reporting.
Yeah, so we have a couple of stories that deal with all of this. One is on some discussions that the Trump administration is having about the future partnership with NATO. So we have seen many of these NATO countries, they're European Union countries, they are meeting, talking about the future for Ukraine, talking about the future for defense of Europe. And for the first time, they're now talking about it in a way where the United States doesn't play as big of a role. Well, the Trump administration is also doing the same. They are now considering some major changes to their NATO relationship that would include potentially prioritizing the members or the nations who spend a certain amount of their GDP on defense. Now, right now, NATO members are expected to spend 2% of their GDP on defense. The Trump administration has now been calling for that to be increased to 5%. Nicole, of course, the U.S. doesn't spend 5%. They're right around 3.9. But the Trump administration is now calling on all members to increase their defense spending as part of their GDP. Now, according to the officials who we spoke with, the Trump...
So you see, man, Lord willing, Trump is going to be that dude, man. Lord willing, through the Spirit and power, how about Shai? Trump is going to be that dude. So like they just said, with the GDP spending for the defense, right now, I guess what she just said, they're paying 2%, almost 2%. Trump is basically asking for more. Now they got to pay 5%. Or else, again, we're not going to come to your defense when you're attacked by other nations. All right.
Administration is considering pulling troops back from some of the countries that do not spend as much, and even calibrating some of the exercises that the U.S. is involved in, so not participating in exercises with countries that don't spend as much on defense as some of the other allies. Of course, this would be a huge change to how the United States has dealt with the NATO alliance historically for decades since the Washington Treaty was signed, and it opens up the possibility that the United States would not be there to defend in the case Article 5 is invoked. That is, of course, if one NATO member is attacked, all NATO members are attacked, and they have the option to respond for their defense. That's one of our stories. Another one is on intelligence, as you were just saying. Some of the United States' closest allies and intelligence sharing allies are now having discussions and concerns about how the United States is clearly moving closer to Russia. The Trump administration, with their language, with some of the actions, seem to be trying to have better relations with Moscow, normalization, essentially, of relations. That is causing concern among intelligence allies and intelligence officials who are now questioning whether sharing some of the most sensitive information with the United States could potentially compromise foreign assets. Of course, those are individuals responsible for gathering intelligence.
And it would make sense, again, being that Babylon is working closely with Russia, and of course, Russia being an enemy to NATO and the EU, which, mind you, NATO was set up in the defense to basically combat the USSR, which, like it tells in Ezekiel 38, the Lord's putting hooks in the jaws of those so-called Russians. All right. Putting that old USSR spirit back in those Russians, which again, the NATO was set up to combat that in the first place. Because if NATO wasn't created, World War III would have taken place a long time ago. It would have taken place shortly after World War II. But of course, prophecies have to come to pass. So, NATO was set up. So the fact that this is going on, and all this is going on, this is a major shift,
All around the world, it's one of the most sacrosanct parts of intelligence gathering, of the intelligence world, is keeping their identities and keeping those individuals safe. Some of these allies are now concerned that they cannot rely on the United States to do that, Nicole.
Courtney, can you just sort of, with all of your knowledge of that building behind you, just put into context how significant a shift this would be for not just the military, but the entire national security apparatus?
I don't know of a shift that would be more significant from a military perspective than this would be. If, in fact, the United States really pulls back from NATO, and really decreases support for NATO. Think about it. The United States has troops throughout I think all of these NATO countries, but if not all, most of these NATO countries, and in some cases, thousands of troops. They have combatant command headquarters there. They conduct exercises with these allies. Week after week, year after year, the United States does rotations of brigades into Europe as part of this big deterrence initiative. Not having the close relationship, the working relationship on a military-to-military relationship with NATO and with these partners would be one of the biggest departures for the United States military that we've seen in decades, Nicole.
Director Brennan, let's take the two pieces of reporting separately, and let's start with Courtney's second piece of reporting. This was a question I've been asking on and off of television for the better part of 9 months. What would the impact be to the intelligence sharing agreements if Trump were to seem to align with Putin? Well, he's as always, he's 10 steps ahead of where everyone thinks the Trump story is going to go, and he's publicly aligning with Putin. He's castigating America's ally in the Oval Office and publicly saying the things that Putin would say had he been sitting on that couch next to J.D. Vance. I wonder what you make of how much of the discussions about stopping the flow of intelligence among our allies is about what they're saying it's about, and how much of it is about all of this being shared with Russia.
This is also damaging and dangerous for U.S. national security interests, Nicole. It is unsurprising that our partners and allies around the world, especially in Europe, are now reevaluating what it is they want to do in terms of sharing information and intelligence with the U.S. The strength of the U.S. intelligence community over the course of many decades has been a result of all of those relationships that we've forged around the globe with intelligence and security services. As good and as big as U.S. intelligence is, we rely heavily on these other countries and these services in order to provide us the type of access and information that we need, because we really need to have them. They have some unique accesses and presence. As Courtney said, it's not just the concerns about the identities of their human sources. That's absolutely critical to them. But it's also some of their technical collection systems. And the fact that the Trump administration now is cozying up to Russia, they really have to ask themselves, how can they trust the United States to share with the United States intelligence agencies the most sensitive information that they have and intelligence that they gather? Because it could be compromised as a result of Trump's whims to direct the heads of the intelligence agencies to share information. Maybe he wants to give Putin, some type of insight into why we know certain things about what's going on inside of Ukraine or other places. So again,
So yeah, man, like I said, as I was going to say, it makes sense. Why would American allies trust America with sharing certain intelligence when America is aligning with Russia, which is an enemy to NATO and the EU? It makes sense. Or rather, it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense on their behalf. The trust is waning. So yeah, I don't want to drag this out. I'm gonna do a second part because with all this being said, all right, America's allies are pulling away from America, right? Because right now, and I'm gonna grab this. With all this peace talk, right? So, allegedly. Isaiah 57:21. There is no peace save my power to the wicked. Because right now, that's the cry, for peace talks. All right. And it's looking like, these nations, man, these allies of America, they're trying to looking at America like, like what's going on, pretty much, in a sense, because they want to have these peace talks, right? And just my speculation, what Trump is saying versus what he's doing is totally different. But overall, the point being that Yahweh Shema Shai, he's the one that's stirring the minds of these leaders and leading them towards war, right? Like it tells you in Proverbs 21:1. Grab that real quick. The king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will. So it's all the will of Yahweh Shema Shai. He's the one that's stirring the minds of these different leaders. All right. Because right now everyone's crying out for peace talks. And again, Russia, they're basically turning down those peace talks because of, Lord willing, the next video I'm going to get into. Russia's turning down the peace talks. All right. And Russia's aggression is not stopping. So again, the EU and NATO alliance is shaky after Trump, pretty much backstabbed Ukraine. Like I said, everyone's seen this. So now they got to make moves on the behalf of their, they have to make decisions that's, for the best of their own interests. And that means pulling away from America, But yeah, this is the first part. I'm going to go ahead and, Lord willing, do the second part. Lord willing, this was edifying. Shalom to you. Hopefully,